Hey there, welcome back to my kitchen. So this week I am sharing some sandwich ideas with you. I have been on a sandwich kick lately. I've been eating them for my lunches almost every day, and then I made some for dinner this week, so I hope you enjoyed today's video, but let's go ahead and get started. First up today, we're making these jalapeno chicken melts. To begin, we're going to go ahead and make our sauce first. I'm adding about half a cup of mayonnaise into this bowl with about 1 teaspoon of Cajun seasoning and a half teaspoon of garlic powder. If you're using a store-bought Cajun, this can get salty really quickly, so I would definitely suggest making a homemade version, or if you do use the store version, then just go a little bit lighter. Then I'm adding in a half teaspoon of sugar and then giving it one more mix, and we're just going to set this aside until we're ready to use it. Now to make the seasoning for the chicken, into this bowl I'm adding 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, about a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and then 2 teaspoons of ranch seasoning mix. Again, just give this a mix and then set it aside for just a minute. Into this skillet, I'm adding about a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of olive oil. I'm going to let these heat up in this pan while I go ahead and get my chicken ready. For this, I'm using 2 chicken breasts that I cut in half, as you can see. And then I'm just taking that seasoning we just made and sprinkling that over both sides of the chicken, making sure to use my hand to really rub it into both sides. Once that is seasoned and that butter is nice and hot, you can go ahead and start cooking your chicken. I did choose to cook mine 2 at a time, and I just cooked them for 3 to 4 minutes on each side until they were browned up and cooked all the way through. Once you've cooked all your chicken, go ahead and just set it aside and let it rest for just a few minutes while you get your buns prepared. Onto this baking sheet, I'm adding my 2 buns. This makes enough for about 3 of these subs, or you can make these into smaller sandwiches and it'll definitely stretch a lot further. Once I have those opened up, I'm going to add the chicken on. So since these sub buns were so long, I went ahead and just cut a piece off of another piece of chicken, that way it would fill the entire sub bun. These can actually make about 8 sandwiches if you really split the chicken up right onto regular hamburger buns, but we are having them on subs today. Over top of the chicken, I am adding on some jalapenos. If you prefer, you can use fresh jalapenos and kind of saute them and then add them on here. But honestly, we just like the jarred kind, so I went ahead and just covered those with the jalapenos. And then I'm also covering them with 1½ slices of provolone cheese. I stuck these in the oven under the broil setting for about 3 minutes, just long enough to melt the cheese and kind of toast up the bread a little bit. If you want to brown up the cheese, you can leave it in there a little bit longer than this, but this is good enough for us. We just like the cheese to be melted. Once they are out of the oven though, you can go ahead and add on that spicy Cajun mayonnaise sauce. This is what it looked like when it was all done. I just made some French fries, nice and easy for this night. But these are honestly so good. If you like spicy food, then you will enjoy these because they are sure spicy, but man, are they good. Now we're going to be making these Black Forest ham sandwiches. To begin, I just went ahead and sliced up a Roma tomato. a little bit of red onion, and also just a little bit of lettuce. Over into a skillet, I'm going to melt just a little bit of butter, and then once that's melted, I'm adding in 2 slices of bread. Any bread will do, but a thicker sliced bread is a little bit better for this. Basically, I am just browning up both sides of this bread. You could also just toss these into a toaster if you want to. Once my bread is all browned up, I'm going to move on to my ham. The way I'm laying this in here is just taking 2 slices and kind of folding them over on top of each other to create a rectangular shape, and I'm just going to brown these up in here. This will make them kind of stick together a little bit so it's easier to put on the sandwich. But you'll just want to brown these up for a minute or 2 on each side, and then once they are browned on the one side and flipped over, you can go ahead and add your cheese. Today I was just using provolone, but any cheese will do. I added my lid on and let these melt for a minute or 2. Once the cheese has melted, you can go ahead and just add that right onto that toasted bread. Now for my sandwich, I love all the toppings, so of course I'm adding that Roma tomato on there, a little bit of the red onion and the lettuce. For the condiments, I'm adding on some mayonnaise onto this bread along with a little bit of honey mustard. This definitely hit the spot this night. It was so fresh, yet so flavorful. I love easy meals like this. I'm sure you do too. Dinner does not always have to be difficult. This meal was so easy. It took me hardly any time at all and still turned out really delicious. And now we're going to be making these chicken Alfredo meatball subs. I went ahead and preheated my oven to 375 degrees. Into this nice big bowl, I'm adding in 1 pound of ground chicken, 2/3 cup of panko breadcrumbs, a 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese, 1 egg, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, a 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, and then finally 1 teaspoon of minced garlic. Go ahead and use your hand and get that well combined, making sure to break up any little balls of that Parmesan cheese and just get everything fully incorporated. I almost forgot to add this, but you'll want to add about 2 tablespoons of milk in there. So I went ahead and added those in and continued mixing. Once that is all combined really nicely, you can go ahead and start making your meatballs. You can make these as large as you want to. I just tried to make them about normal size for a meatball. And once you get them rolled up, you can just add them onto the pan that you're cooking them with. I like to use this little pan that has kind of like a tray over the top. That way all the drippings can just go down in the bottom. I baked these in my oven for right around 12 to 15 minutes until they were cooked all the way through and temping at 165 in the center. While those are in the oven, we're going to go ahead and make this Alfredo sauce. So of course you can use a jar if you want to, but I tried making a homemade version this time since I didn't have any on hand. And to do that, I went ahead and added 1 stick of butter into this pan and let that start to melt down. I also added in a hefty tablespoon of minced garlic, and then I'm also adding in 1.5 cups of heavy whipping cream. I'm going to get this mixed together, just scrape the bottom to make sure none of that garlic stuck or anything. And then I just let this simmer on my stove on a low to medium heat for about 5 to 7 minutes until it was nice and hot. For the seasonings, I added in a 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a couple shakes of pepper, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You can adjust these seasonings if you need to, add more salt or pepper or Italian seasoning. It's totally up to you. So just make sure to season how you and your family like things to taste. Next, I'm adding in 2 cups of Parmesan cheese. On hand, I only had enough for 1 fresh cup of Parmesan, and then I just used the grated spaghetti Parmesan cheese, you know, that comes in the shaker jar, to cover that 2nd cup of Parmesan cheese. I let those melt in here for about 5 to 10 minutes until they were nice and hot, and then I added in my meatballs so I could cover them in the sauce. Next, we're going to go ahead and get our buns ready. So I'm just using the same pan I used for the meatballs and adding my sub buns on there. I took a little bit of avocado oil and just sprayed my buns and then added them into the oven under broil for about 2 to 3 minutes just so they could get a little bit crispy. And then I took those meatballs and the sauce and covered each one of the subs. Feel free to top it with some more cheese over the top, but I just went ahead and skipped that. This is what my finished plate looked like. I just had the sub alone this night. These are really filling. But also I love these because they are a nice little change from the traditional meatball subs. Thank you guys so much for watching today. Don't forget to leave your flour down in the comments if you made it all the way to the end of this video. I will not have a video up on Wednesday, so I will see you back here next Sunday. Bye guys.